my soul. Get ready, my soul.
Give Daniel a hand. That song is probably familiar because Alan sings it a lot. And Alan will be here next week playing music, which we appreciate having live music once a month. That's what our budget allows. If you want to change that, then donate more. Get ready, my soul, I'm diving in. I love that song. Because it brings us into a deeper place, doesn't it? Last week we looked at the unstatus quo, and that's the theme of the Centers for Spiritual Living this month. And the idea that we make safe space for others who may look or be different than us. And how, in the science of mind, we encourage a shift in perception towards recognizing the inherent unity and equality of everyone, which invites us to be with each other with compassion, empathy, and respect. Reverend Karen Lindsay years ago created a workshop called Status Quo or Status Go. I like that. And her workshop looked into what fears keep us stuck in our lives and what we can do about those fears. The premise is that if we address our fears properly, we can move better out of the status quo, out of the stuckness, and into more creativity, more liveliness, and more go in our lives. That's why I'm really excited about this new book study we're going to do. This is a little book, kind of like my little book. Remember I said my book was so small? Well, I got this the other day. I was like, well, that's small too. When Fear Speaks, Listen. And Dennis Merritt Jones is a fabulous author. I've taught a couple of his book classes. And this little book talks about the 7 messengers of fear and their descendants. And how those fears keep us stuck in status quo, unless we listen to the messages they have to offer. You know, last week I talked about othering and how feelings of superiority or inferiority and our judgment of others really gets in the way of our good, doesn't it? And according to Dennis Merritt Jones, judgment is one of the messengers of fear. And its descendants are superiority and inferiority. So check it out. What if we could move through life without judgment? Everybody laughs. I mean, even if it's not about another person, it's just ourselves too. You know, it's just sort of a human thing, right? But if we could move through life with a true sense of what it means to be humble, to know our strengths and our weaknesses, and be able to truly just be in life and not feel above or below anyone or anything. Because feeling judged or being judged makes us separate, doesn't it? And that separation can be very lonely. What if we were instead to release all that judgment and replace it with meekness? Meek is not weak. Hear that. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, because we're going to look at the Beatitudes from the Bible. Those of you that don't like the Bible, I'm sorry. But in the science of mind, we understand that the lessons in the Bible were never meant to be taken literally, because they taught in metaphor and symbolism in those days. And most versions of the Bible have been translated so many times that they're inaccurate at best. So we come from, in this philosophy, the metaphysical version of the teachings of Jesus. So beatitude inherited its word from the Latin beatus. meaning both happy and blessed. And in the Bible, the Beatitudes, you know what they are?
Mm-hmm.
They're a series of 8 blessings recounted by Jesus where?
Sermon on the Mount.
Sermon on the Mount. Good. You get an A.
Yeah.
Sermon on the Mount in the Gospel of Matthew. You don't have to know this, but sometimes it's interesting. And each proverb, like proclamation, is without a narrative. And each beatitude consists of 2 phrases, the condition and the result. That's it. And in almost all cases, the phrases are used that are familiar from an Old Testament context, but in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus elevated them to new levels and teachings. So the Beatitudes present a new set of ideals that focus on love and humility instead of force and aggression. Hear that? Now, isn't that good today? Can we use that today? Right? Focus on love and humility rather than force and aggression. Wow. Because those echo the highest ideals of Jesus' teaching on spirituality and compassion. So what do the Beatitudes invite us to be in the world? That's my talk title, is be, capital B-E, attitudes, right? I did a play on the words, right?
I like it.
Oh, good. Because I believe when we stay attentive to these attitudes, they allow us to honor the holy and the sacred that is present in every aspect of our life, even the stuff that doesn't feel good or that we don't want. Everything is a gift. So a few years ago, I've taught this class a few times called The Yoga of Jesus. And it's by Paramahansa Yogananda, who I have been a student of for many, many years. And Yogananda was around at the same time Ernest Holmes was. They were contemporaries. And Yogananda spoke to hundreds and thousands of people in his philosophy called the science of religion. And Ernest Holmes taught thousands of people in religious science. Isn't that interesting? So there was a real interesting comparison there. So anyway, this is called the Yoga of Jesus. And I want to just read what Yogananda says about the Beatitudes. He has a whole chapter on it. During his teaching, Jesus let loose, through his voice as well as through his eyes, his divine life force and godly vibration to spread over his disciples, making them calmly attuned and magnetized and able to receive, through their intuitional understanding, the full measure of his wisdom. The lyric verses of Jesus that begin, "Blessed are," have become known as the Beatitudes. To beautify is to make supremely happy. Beatitude signifies the blessedness, the bliss of heaven. Jesus here sets forth with power and simplicity a doctrine of moral and spiritual principles that has echoed undiminished down through the ages. These are tenets by which our life can become blessed and filled with heavenly bliss. So I'm going to share with you some of the metaphysical translations of just 3 of the Beatitudes today. The first one is, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." So the condition, blessed are the meek, result, inheriting the earth. Now, meek, again, does not mean weak. Meek means yielding, pliable, flexible, and unassuming. Different, huh? Now you can kind of see that beatitude differently. And the earth means our outer conditions or our manifestations or the result of a cause. So we shall inherit our manifestation. We shall create through our meekness, our yielding. So the great unity teacher, Emmett Fox, said, when you possess the spiritual meaning of this statement, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, you have the secret dominion, the secret of overcoming every difficulty. It is the Jesus Christ message in a single sentence. To inherit the earth means to have dominion over outer experience, to have power to bring your conditions of life into harmony and success. So you have the power to do that. So what that really means is, delighted are the yielding, the pliable, the flexible, the unassuming, for they shall have control over their outer conditions. Blessed are those who place more importance on the God of their understanding, on the Creator, the divine, than they do on material things. So where's your thinking going? Can you come back to center? So one of the ways out of judgment and all those limitations it causes is to be meek and humble. To be yielding, to be flexible, to be unassuming, to place more importance on a power higher than we are than on material things. And I know you all know this. Yeah. But it's good to hear it, isn't it? Again, and again, and again. Even Ernest Holmes, in the Science of Mind glossary, in the textbook, his definition of humility. True humility does not mean self-abasement, but is rather the attitude which Emerson tells us is willing to get its bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits.
Yes.
Yeah. Good old Emerson.
Yeah.
Get your bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. I know we've heard that one before. It's an intelligent recognition to be humble, because it is the whole that is greater than any one of its parts. And Yogananda said, humbleness and meekness create in us a bottomless receptacle to hold the truth, with a capital T. A proud, irascible individual, like the proverbial rolling stone, rolls down the hill of ignorance and gathers no moss of wisdom, while meek souls, at peace in the valley of mental readiness, gather waters of wisdom, flowing from source, human and divine, to nourish their flowering soul qualities. It's so poetic. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Do you have a different idea of that now? So let's affirm, I am receptive to the wisdom and peace of the divine spirit in my life. Repeat after me. I am receptive.
I am receptive
to the wisdom and peace.
to the wisdom and peace
Of the divine spirit in my life.
of the divine spirit in my life.
I am receptive to the wisdom
I am receptive to the wisdom
and peace of the divine spirit in my life.
of the divine spirit in my life.
Take a breath. Remember your gold nuggets today. We always share them at the end. The second beatitude I wanted to use today was, blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. And again, if you have an issue with the word God, just turn it to love or whatever other word you want to use. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. So purity of heart is the capacity to see reality as it is without the distortion of the ego and false perceptions.
Yay.
I mean, we all have an ego, and the ego serves us at a certain point, but if our life is run by the ego, I think it was Wayne Dyer. Remember good old Wayne Dyer?
Yes.
Ego, edging God out.
Oh.
E-G-O. The purification of our heart is the first step to a direct perception of the divine. And in the shamanic tradition, the heart center is considered the midway point between Mother Earth and Father Sky. So opening our heart is a really important thing. But we have to calm our mind first in order to find our heart center. So in the book, Yogananda describes that we progress through successive stages of the heart in order to move out of the clouds of delusion and closed consciousness. Anybody ever been in the clouds? Stress, struggle, you know. Yeah. So he talks about moving from the propelled heart to the steady heart, to the devoted heart, to the clean heart. Then we are able, he says, to comprehend the spiritual life that lives in everyone as the real substance of the universe. That's where the namaste comes from. The light in me sees the light in you. I, as my ego, may not see the light in you, but that light in me does. And this reminds me of the 4 kingdoms of consciousness that I taught before, where we have these 4 stages that we go through, and they're not linear, but life is done to me. I'm a victim. Then we can grow into life is done by me, and I do it all. And then we move into life is done through me in partnership with God. And then we eventually get to life is done as me, where we're in unity with that divine flow. You remember those? We did a whole thing on that. And it goes from no will to my will to thy will to unity. Take a breath. Because all of us, as souls, in our original state, are omniscient. I want you to hear that. Each of you, as a soul, is omniscient. What does omniscient mean?
All-knowing.
All-knowing. Somewhere in all those clouds within you is the truth that you have. When you're pure in heart, Yogananda says divine sight will be restored. So we have to be willing to free our consciousness and open our heart's feelings. And that's why meditation is so beautiful and wonderful. Because we can calm those storms of opposites, calm the agitated ego, and receive that blessed calmness of our soul. Be quiet and still, and allow whatever needs to show up to show up. So the clean heart wants to follow the path of wisdom and truth, so that we tap into the divine indweller, whose nature is a harmonic blend of wisdom and love. Period. So let's affirm this. My heart is open to love and harmony.
My heart is open to love and harmony.
Again.
My heart is open to love and harmony.
One more time.
My heart is open to love and harmony.
Just take a breath with that. That's sacred medicine. That is really good medicine. Take that 3 times a day and call me in the morning.
That's your prescription.
That's your prescription. And then the other beatitude, and hopefully you're interested enough to go and read them yourself, or Google it. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And again, there's the condition and the result. Blessed are the merciful. Yogananda's interpretation. Mercy is a sort of fatherly heartache for the deficiency in an erring child. It is an intrinsic quality of the divine nature. The life story of Jesus is full of accounts of mercy sublimely manifest in his actions and personality. The God of Jesus was so gentle. It was that gentleness and mercy of the Father that Jesus expressed when, instead of judging and destroying his enemies who would crucify him, he asked of the Father to forgive them, for they know not what they do. Imagine if we could do that. Forgive them. With the patient heart of God, Jesus looked upon humanity as little children who did not understand. The wise alone can be really merciful, for with divine insight they perceive even wrongdoers as souls. God's children who deserve sympathy, empathy, forgiveness, help, and guidance when they go astray. Mercy implies the capacity for being helpful. You know, I was brought up Catholic. I was a really good Catholic girl. But I was under the influence of being born as an original sinner. I know we've talked about this before. And some of you may have been there too. And I had to always ask for mercy, for forgiveness. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. And I go to confession, right? So I haven't really had a very comfortable relationship with the word mercy for a long time. But in the past few years, I kept coming back to this beatitude. And then when I was teaching this book, Yoga of Jesus, I got a whole different concept of mercy. And then I also looked it up, the definition. Mercy is an act of grace, performed out of a desire to relieve suffering, motivated by compassion, and based on trust and forgiveness. Yeah, I mean, we all desire to relieve our suffering in others, I would hope. And I believe we're all motivated by compassion when we allow it, and that's based on trust and forgiveness. And I know some of us are going through some really challenging personal things right now. So use your spiritual practices, use your prayer to ground yourself in the truth. Let your soul speak to you. Emmett Fox, again, the great unity teacher, the thing that really matters, he says, is that you be merciful in your thought. Kind actions coupled with unkind thoughts are hypocrisy, dictated by fear or desire for self-glory. True thought about others blesses them spiritually, mentally, and materially, and it blesses you too. You know, this makes me think of my practitioner in minister consciousness and how I was trained for years and years and years to be able to see through appearances of wrongdoing by another or myself and to offer guidance and empathy. Because mercy really implies the capacity for being helpful, as he said. And that is my role, that's my job as your spiritual director. And if I'm not doing that, please let me know. Because I work on tempering my own judgments, believe me. But I also can offer forgiveness and understanding. And I know when I receive divine mercy, I can be much more forgiving and merciful to myself. And then I can do it for others. I continue to develop spiritually also. And I know when I do and when you do, that we will all feel that love and mercy of the divine in a much deeper way. So an affirmation here is, I call forth the Christ within me to forgive and have mercy on myself and others. Repeat after me. I call forth the Christ within me.
I call forth the Christ within me.
To forgive.
To forgive.
And have mercy on myself and others.
Have mercy on myself and others.
Take a big breath. Because it is not I, it is the Father within me that doeth the work. You don't have to do this by yourself. There's a power for good in the universe, and you can use it. There's a power for good in the universe, and it so wants to use you, but we have to call it forth. Yeah. So as Reverend Karen suggests, one way to move from status quo to status go is to be willing to look at our discomfort, to look at it, not resist it, not push it away, not stuff it down, and take a step forward by placing more importance on our connection to the divine within us than we do anything else. That's where we go to. So we can move into the unstatus quo by nurturing and strengthening that connection to our divine self. Right? Okay, you're going to have a test later. So I want to close with a short story And this was from one of my teachers at Ananda, in the Yogananda tradition. And she said, yesterday, as we sat in the Temple of Light at a wonderful gathering, the fluttering of little wings caught my eye. It was a moth inside the temple that was repeatedly flinging itself against a closed window in an effort to escape into the beautiful garden outside. Inches away from the window pane was an open door through which it could have easily flown out. How like this little moth we all are, I thought. The barrier of the physical world and our attachment to the senses keeps us trapped here, unable to enter the garden of our soul. Finally, a breeze through the open door enabled the moth to fly to freedom in the garden. Similarly, in the breeze of grace and divine awareness reveals to us the way out of suffering and confinement in this world. Though our way is uniquely our own and we must walk it alone, still we share this journey with all of life. This is the divine drama. And through his love, God dances individually with each of us and shows us our way to freedom. The question is, are we willing to follow that lead? Being like the moth, finding that out. So what is your beatitude today that is going to give you better results?